right, so we're back.
Clause the next.
Jeez.
It's 10 past.
Yes, let's go.
Let's go, Councilor Jordan.
0% change. Jenny, are these yours? No.
Sunday.
Sunday.
Don't get in a hurry.
Saturday to
Yeah,
after midnight.
Sunday is warming up. 36 and beautiful on Sunday. Okay, Sunday.
What happened to the judge? Did he leave?
He's gone. Where we going?
He had it now.
We're on the list.
He's pulling everybody's divorce papers out to revisit it.
Attorney Clifford Hotman, Mansfield, Mass. Great town, yeah.
Sorry.
Did he get his concert tickets? No. From Mansfield.
Good afternoon. It's an honor and a privilege to be here before you today. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Paul. I've been a practicing lawyer since 1980 and been practicing in Mansfield, Bristol County since 1986. Although my firm name has changed several times, since 1991, my law firm has been Hotman & Nugent. Although Hotman & Nugent is a general practice firm, my individual practice is 80 to 85% family law. Being a family law attorney, I'm a regular at the courthouse, mainly the Bristol and Norfolk County courts, appearing several times a week. Being there that often allows you to develop friendships with the court personnel, and as such, you hear what was going on. If you're not hearing from the court personnel, then you're hearing it from your fellow attorneys. The Bristol County family law community are a relatively small group of men and women who you see constantly in the hallways. In the past, I would hear about changes in the court personnel, who's working with what judge, or who's thinking about retiring, or who wants a new position within the court system. And of course, if there was interest about a judge or those applying for judgeship, it would be natural for you to walk through the courthouse hallways and talk to your fellow attorneys and ask, did you hear who's applying for the judgeship? What do you think about that person as a potential judge? And the conversations begin. Would they make a good judge? Do they have the right temperament to be a judge? Is this a good selection for our local courts? Lawyers start providing their reasoning why someone would or would not make an excellent judge. You begin to hear the stories of how a judicial candidate handled a certain case. You hear how they acted or interacted in the case, the positions they took, and whether they thought the approach to the case or the action taken was appropriate. In the past, I certainly have commented on proposed judicial candidates, and I remember talking to Paul about Judge Casey, Susan Jacobs, Peter Smola, all judges you approved. Paul and I were very much in favor of these lawyers becoming appointed. These were very qualified individuals, lawyers who knew their craft, and they had the right temperament to be a judge. Through the rumor mill, I also heard about other potential candidates that were applying for judgeships that concerned me. Although I enjoyed several of these individuals personally, I felt that they did not have the right stuff to be a judge. When I heard the scuttlebutt about Paul applying for a judgeship, I immediately called him and he confirmed the rumor. As word got out about Paul's application for judgeship, the courthouse talk about him began. This time it was different. I can honestly tell you that there is universal support for Paul being appointed as a probate court judge. I have not heard one negative comment today. Paul is very much respected in our small Bristol County family law community. When clients come in after being served with a complaint for divorce or other matter, one of the first things that I do is, as a lawyer, is I look to the lawyer representing the other party. That tells me a lot about what to expect. Sometimes I see the lawyer's name and I shudder. Not that I'm intimidated by that lawyer. I just know what my client is going to be up against. You all know that these are the lawyers that will spend $5,000 to make $2,000. Some that will fight for the sake of the fight, and others that will unfortunately just know how to eat retainers. Or there are those lawyers you know that you could work with. You see their name on a pleading and there's a sense of relief for your client. You can inform your client as to what you expect from that opposing counsel. With Paul, I know what to expect. Paul is a dedicated lawyer, very knowledgeable in family law matters, displays proper demeanor in dealing with litigants, and is always respectful and patient. Over the years, I've had countless joint meetings with Paul in cases which would involve trying to settle acted in a respectful manner towards all parties. Paul has never acted in a manner to inflame the situation. One of Paul's natural gifts is his ability to use common sense or to think outside the box to solve problems. We might not always agree on how to solve a case, but the disagreement is unprofessional. One particular attribute that I want to make sure this committee realizes about Paul is that his word is gold. I never have to question whether he will do what he says he would do, nor do I have to follow up on that issue. If Paul tells me he will obtain the documents I need, I'll receive them. If Paul tells me that he will speak to his client to curb some inappropriate behavior, rather than my filing appropriate pleading, I know he'll speak to his client. And I know if he says that he will make an event happen, such as solving a parent issue or a holiday schedule or child support matter, or whatever the issue, if he says he'll handle it, he will. I'm really not sure when I first met Paul. I assume it was in the late 1980s or early 1990s. I've known him for years. Over the years, we refer cases to one another in conflict situations, or have recommended the other when one party needs a lawyer. I know that I can call his office in any early morning that he's not in court, and I'll find him there between 7 and 7:30. We often chuckle with each other when we run into each other at the courthouse. You see, he and I are generally one of the first ones to arrive at the courthouse. And the chuckle is that I tend to only be there by a few minutes. But we're at the courthouse early so we can obtain a conference room, check in with the assistant judicial case managers, complete DOR forms, or do whatever we have to do so that the day runs smoothly. I don't expect any of this to change when Paul becomes a judge. It wouldn't surprise me to learn that he's at his desk early mornings, preparing and getting ready for the day. I would expect him to be the same gentleman on the bench that he is off the bench. I would expect Paul to continue to use the same intellect and common sense approach to solve domestic problems as he has in the past. And just as in his practice, I would expect Paul to use the same knowledge of the law fairly to the parties appearing before him. In closing, I strongly encourage you to select Paul Cronan to any of the vacancies on the Bristol County Probate Family Court. He possesses the same legal skills and knowledge, personal traits and dedication as those you have already appointed, namely Judge Casey, who you saw earlier today, Judge Jacobs. I hope you will consider Paul Cronan for the position. Massachusetts would be well served by his appointment.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Councilman.
And you've been doing probate family law for how long, sir?
Since 1986.
Help me out, because I have a tough time trying to understand this. Marital asset, small law firm, sole practitioner, is that a marital asset, or is the law firm just a way, again, I may not be saying it right, to pay alimony and child support for the street?
The way I would answer that question is the second part. We don't have a value in our business. My business can't be sold. So it's a question of what I, as a lawyer, bring in and what I generate as income as to what I would pay in the whole situation.
Okay. Now, why can't your business be sold?
I'm not quite sure, but I believe that's an ethical rule.
Okay? Let's assume, for this hypothetical, that it could be sold. Would it be an asset, or would it be just the stream of income?
I'm not sure if there's a value in the business itself. If I look at my practice, Hoffman and Nugent, and there's two of us,
Sure.
all right? And I look at that practice, and looking at that practice, people come to me or they come to my partner farm. They're not gonna come, if it's sold, Hoffman and Nugent no longer exists. I'm not sure our reputation goes to the next buyer.
So is this a way to put it? There's no goodwill. It's not like a gas station. Like, I'm just a gas station on the highway. And I have no clue who the owner of the gas station. I go to whatever, go Exxon, not because of the owner, but for I get good service. That situation, the gas station may be a marital asset because once the owner sells that, the folks still don't do it.
Right.
You ever find out in your experience that, two questions, that in a divorce, that, okay, let's go with that sole practitioner, hypothetical. And now one side representing one spouse says, okay, we want to value the practice. What do? The other, you're representing whatever spouse, and the other side, you go in for a motion, say, what's the point, or what are you doing? Do you let them evaluate the practice? Because you're telling me there's no value, and I agree.
Let me speak personally. Right? I was subject to this divorce. And in that process, the lawyer representing my wife came in to look at the practice and value the practice. But I think what was being done at that point was looking at what the expectation of income would be on a yearly basis. But the practice itself has no value. Let me turn it around the other way. Let's suppose I was a landscaper. No, let's suppose I owned a burglar alarm company. I installed burglar alarms. There's two parts of that case. One would be the installation of burglar alarms, which I would say to you is no different than my practice. Money is general. But the other part would be if I was able to sell time or monitoring services. That would be a stream of income that would have a value. But as a practice itself, I look at it as though my practice has no value. It's just what I generate.
I understand that, but let's use your hypothetical with the alarm system. Okay? And this person is, making 100,000 installing alarms. He's unbelievable. Everyone loves his alarm monitoring system because he's so cheap. If you can believe it, he's making 300,000. Okay? Monitoring. But in your theory, so his income would be 400,000, right? On his tax return. Okay. So are you telling me that, first question, I'm gonna ask you the same question. So when a judge, so here we have 100,000 installing he's making, and 300,000 monitoring, but he's making 400,000. Is a judge, when determining alimony and child support, based on what you just said, are they gonna base that on the 100,000 or the 400,000? That question first.
Looking at what you're describing, I would say, looking at, I think the judge would look at it two ways. I think one, certainly the salary that he's getting out of his business itself, 100,000, would clearly be part of the formulas. How I think someone judges what the $300,000 is would depend on whether that maintains a stream of income, or whether that's an asset that is going to be sold, or whether the wife is buying out the, or whether that asset is being bought out.
Well, it's not being bought.
Well, if it's not being bought out, then I would say it's a stream of income of 400. And that's what I would argue.
400. I got it. I mean, that's what I would have thought.
Right.
So no different than the law practice. First time. It's just a stream of income. And okay. But in that same hypothetical, I'm just thinking the cost, attorney's fees for these poor people of money. Is a judge going to allow, that's what you think, you represent this Shufro security. And now the other side says, okay, we want to evaluate the practice. And you're going to let them do that when there's really no purpose to it. And what will a judge do? If they say, okay, we filed a motion, we want to be able to go into Joe Kelly's, look at his records, look at this. I mean, can you say what happens in reality? Judge, what's the point of it? It's a stream of income, In reality, what happens? Does the judge allow them to evaluate the practice? Because you're saying, and I agree with you, that it's really just a stream of income.
Right. But I don't have an issue with the other side looking into my business to see what I've done in terms of my income, what I've taken from my deductions, what I'm using as my expenses. So I think a judge would allow and should allow that type of review, because when you're dealing with family law issues, you deal with monetary matters, everybody wants to be upfront. Everybody wants to have or know what the values are. The only way to know that sometimes, and to protect yourself, protect your client, is to do just that, and that is to have the business analyzed.
In life, but then I assume you're going to tell me in these two hypotheticals, if at least in your experience, you've been doing it for a long time, a judge would not consider the law firm in the security company as marital assets. In the same way.
Right, the security company being $100,000.
Also,
$100,000 is the stream, I'm sorry, did I misunderstand you? The $100,000 is the stream of income, the $300,000 is.
so the other spouse could make the argument, the monitor is $300,000, she's entitled to $150,000. Because if you're saying it's a marital asset are split 50-50.
Well,
I'm losing you. Gotta make it simple for them.
I don't think it is that simple, a lot of it depends upon.
That's what they said last week, I never got it really answered, it says it's too complicated.
Well,
I'm just, you know,
well, I understand that, but you're asking a very basic question, and like what I heard Judge Casey answering before, there's a lot of factors involved in these things. The first question becomes, is this going to remain a monitoring company to which a stream of income is being had? And if it is, then
that's what I'm saying in both of these hypotheticals.
then wife doesn't get 50% of that. Wife is gonna get whatever the allocation is to her for a child support or alimony. If the asset is being sold.
That's different, you're gonna have to tell me.
Right.
I got that.
Okay.
So in both hypotheticals, someone's 45 years old, sole practitioner in the law business, security company, they have no intention to retire, to sell, whatever. In both hypotheticals, you're saying, and I have to agree with you, that it's a stream of income, it's not a marital asset where the wife or the husband would get X. Agree?
Under those circumstances.
Under those circumstances. All right, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Any other questions?
This nominee, so I'd like to know your experience and contracts being laid in the but how often have you seen case or experience, how many cases have you seen?
Over 20, 30 years. 70. We're a small legal community, and there are only a certain number of players that really practice this area. So it's very common to see the same lawyers over and over. Plus, one of the things that I've learned is that when you get a certain case in, there's a conflict situation, like I said in my speech, or there's this client doesn't have an attorney, I'd like to work with someone who I know I could work with. And so naturally, I would work with Paul. I've had numerous cases with Paul. We have settled many of our cases, but there are plenty of times when we've had a disagreement and we go to court. I have been in his courtroom where I've seen him argue a case. I've been in the courtroom where I've seen him trial a case. So I feel very comfortable saying to you that he is a very experienced lawyer in this area.
That's what I know from the witnesses, your experience with this. I love to hear about philosophy and all that, but, you know, we have to be things, what I wanted to know is, and I'm sorry to be repetitive, are you retired?
I am. I have a small practice myself, my father, a small firm, and it's a general practice.
So what are most of your cases?
About 80 to 85% of my work is in the law. Divorce issues, things like that.
So you can see him, yes.
And I've had cases, I mean, up until his nomination, we were dealing with post-divorce issue, dealing with upcoming Christmas vacation and
Have you ever
travel
been,
issues,
have you
things
ever
like
been
that.
in a closing attorney?
Oh, no.
You're closing, okay.
Yeah, but, I mean, I say I work with him because that's what we do with attorneys. Misconception, I think, in divorce law is that when the case comes in, you don't draw the sword right away. Those that do this as a practice know when to draw the sword if it's necessary. Those that know how to practice divorce law and the law know how. There's a good feeling once a case comes in, you know pretty much where this save money on behalf of the business. You know,
But, you know, you coming as an opposing attorney tells me that you.
Always. Always. I think Judge Casey said it himself. I've never seen Paul. And I mean it when I said that I've had numerous, in our practice, we're required to have joint meetings for trial clients. And I've met with Paul and his client, my client, numerous times. And Paul doesn't handle it. There is respect. Whenever I've had a case with him, he never complains to the situation. And if a case is getting out of control, he knows how to calm it down. Paul is that type of individual. And that's why I like dealing with him. As I said, we all know the lawyers. We all know the lawyers. Those that I think really know how to practice, know that's not how to do it. And I think that, and one of the things that I see is that Paul is respectful towards the only towards the case, but for the money issues as well. I've never seen him file frivolous motions. I've never seen him take a position that was just arbitrary. He is bringing an issue forward. Here's good reason. And he argues.
Thank you, you're just.
Barbara Pacheco, retired AJCM from the Bristol Probate Family Court. What does AJCM mean?
Judicial case manager.
Ah,
I retired 2 days ago.
and a frequent visitor to the Azores.
We run the same
Yes.
church. My name is Barbara Pacheco. That's it. I've worked for the Bristol County Probate Family Court for the past 37 years. Retired
Congratulations.
2 days ago. As an assistant judicial case manager, I spent every day in the courtroom, clerking the daily sessions with the judge. As a result, I feel that I have firsthand knowledge of the job of a probate court judge and what it entails. It is not an easy job. It is all day, every day, with as many as 50 cases, ranging from domestic relations, probate, guardianship, legal protection, abuse, to name a few. It takes a person with knowledge of the law, respect for the law, and respect for the attorneys and the pro se litigants that the court serves, while maintaining a level of professionalism and compassion. The case volume of the probate court is high, as is the number of pro se litigants before the court, which requires the judge to have patience and a good temperament. I am here today because I believe that Attorney Paul Cronan has these possesses these attributes. I have witnessed him many, many times over the years in court and always found him to be respectful, professional, and fair. Paul is always courteous to court staff and is well liked by judicial employees. As I end my tenure, I wish only the best for the Bristol County Probate Family Court and its staff. I feel they would be well served, as with the constituents of Bristol County, by the addition of Attorney Paul Cronan to the probate court bench if confirmed by you. I respectfully ask this council to confirm Paul Cronan's appointment.
Any questions? Yes.
I would just like to say that I've spoken to Attorney Cronan and nominee Cronan at length, and I have the resources to be able to vet him. So I knew you were coming.
Oh, you know,
They also are missing you terribly already. But in any event, if I had to, I guess, rate him, it would be A+ along the line, because what is important to me is how does he treat people like you? How does he treat court officers? How does he treat pro se litigants? How does he treat brother or sister counsel? Is he prepared? Does he know his stuff? And all the way along the line, it was absolutely positively. And that, as a matter of fact, when the vacancy was announced, someone even said that his name was the first name that popped into their head. So it's good to see you here. It was a great retirement. Don't be like me and come back again.
well, I would say if I wasn't retired, I would be more than happy to work. Do a great
And the fact that you're here speaking on his behalf, to me speaks volumes, so thank you very much.
Can I just ask something? You've been around a long time, you've seen judges.
I know.
And you probably rate some judges who were wonderful. Some were, in the middle, and then some were. What I find is that when people come here to this council, they usually have listened to some prior hearings we've had, and they tell us all the things we want to hear. And what I have found is that sometimes after they get the role, they change, turn into somebody different than who led to believe. And that happens not frequently, thankfully. It does happen now and then that I hear somebody here and they just wonderful in their answers and statements to us, and then a month or two after they're on, they call saying, "I'll be with the road." So I think it's something to do with the load that somebody wants to chase.
Well, I
What
would say
about
I've
this
never heard
candidate?
that.
Do you think this candidate is going to be affected by a vote?
And I have sat, I've had the opportunity to sit with every judge since, well, many, many years since. But steadily filling in and things like that. And most of them do a really good job. It's a very busy job. It really is not an easy job. I mean, I was gonna stay till June, but I left now because it's overwhelming. And I've been doing it for a long time, and I just felt like the time was right for me. But I do think that Attorney Cronan will be an excellent position, and I don't see him changing the road. Any other circumstance, I think he's just generally a really honest and fair person. I'm very happy to be here.
Yes.
I just wanted to say that, I didn't have any questions for you, but your testimony was certainly helpful.
It was, I think, myself, it didn't take me too long, because it really is how I feel.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your service.
Oh,
For
thank
your
you.
time.
Enjoy your time.
2 days, but I'm enjoying it so far. Thank you.
Okay, that closes the part of the nomination where people speak on the nominee's behalf. Is there anybody here to speak against the nominee?
I'm gonna speak
Against?
in favor of.
No, I said anybody
Yeah,
here to
but-
speak against.
You were closing that section after minutes went up.
Give him one sheet.
There are no souls saved after 5 minutes.
My name is Patrick McCabe, co-chair of the coalition. Of course, we have a lot of interest in every now and then. Probate family court. I waited until yesterday to find this gentleman's phone number. I called him up, he called me back. Really, I really appreciate that. We spoke about three things that I feel is necessary to make the court and why we do support it. One of our biggest concerns right now is temporary orders. First step orders when tenants walk into the court. I explained to him my experience, although not so much recently, but certainly in the past. When someone walked into court, temporary orders, in 15 minutes, someone lost custody of the children, reduced time, they also had reduced time with the children. 15-minute hearings, why is that happening? He told me his experience was that wasn't going on. I think this is part of what we see is good lawyers who come up here, they're not necessarily involved in that stuff. He's going to ask you ready, prepared to see people coming in front of him trying to do precisely that. So I asked him about his view of both parents retaining all their custody, unless there's something amazing going on. Horrific, I guess is the word. And whether they would both be able to have maximum time with their children. He said that was absolutely his view. So that's one. Second thing we asked about was supervised visitation. Before I even completed my question, he just made it very clear that it should only be used in very rare situations. We're very happy to hear that. I don't think supervised visitation is more of a punishment than really trying to help people in difficult situations. Again, if there's something bad is going on, it's justified. He was also aware that states run programs, supervised visitation centers are oversubscribed. That's also important for him to know. Finally, last thing was an issue that we might have disagreed upon a bit, and that's the use of GALs. And it's the one thing I learned from the process I went through, which when my children came to me when they were much older.
What's a J?
Guardian
GA.
ad.
GA.
one thing they pointed out to me was all the asking questions about your parents, all the investigations. When they were great students. Their doctors said they were great. Their teachers said they were great. The only thing that was going on is two people were going into court having a fight, and so who got punished for it? The children. It's so unnecessary. A GAL can talk to pediatricians, can talk to teachers, and if there's no science, it really doesn't need to go any further. DCF is not involved. Police are not involved. Why you have to treat these children as if this is kind of criminals treating their children? So we had that conversation. I think he understands our feelings about these GALs. He does certainly understands about the need to keep both parents and children's lives, and that's what we're all about.
Let me ask you, that initial restraining order hearing you spoke of, that's a pretty important hearing.
It's not restraining, initial temporary order.
Temporary. That's pretty important.
It's very important. In my experience, very few litigants have any idea.
So you don't think 15 minutes is enough for that kind of important?
Well, because the way they come in is on that motion.
Yeah.
So they're stacked.
Right.
So of course 15 minutes isn't enough, but that's what you're not going to be able to have in that first hearing, you're not going to be able to really uncover all those things to determine if someone's an unfit parent, unless it's clear that they're an unfit parent. If you really want to start arguing about it, it takes longer time. So, if you treat people as innocent people, unless some real allegations are made against them, I really think that's a difference from the way it was in the past. Even though Attorney Cronan told me that he was not involved in those types of cases, I can assure you those cases exist. They exist today. As a matter of fact, we have the Chief Justice from Norfolk County here today, and we're trying to deal with a case where someone didn't even get their hearing and lost custody of the children, and they weren't being accused of anything. So it's a real problem. He understands it. He's not been involved in it. We have to support him.
Well, I agree with you that an initial hearing is so important. It sets the course. 15 minutes is never enough for a decision. So when you get a chance to speak to the
I understand.
you don't always vote in favor of nominees.
If I may, counsel, the people who, this is the first time, Vinnie Patrick is a member of the County Coalition. He takes the time to come here, and I really appreciate it, for or against, because he brings up good points, and he does it, and he knows what's needed for this, and it's made a difference. Judges listen, not 100%, but getting there, and just in public forums, bring these issues up. So thank you, Patrick.
Thank you. Councilor Rhino.
Just a quick question, Patrick, on the GAL, are you saying that Mr. Cronan likes GALs or he doesn't?
He told me that he had experience with them, and he told me actually about a positive outcome when the GAL spoke to the children. And my
So he's in, I heard Justin, so he's in favor of GAL.
well, he also heard what I had to say. So I'm of the opinion he has an open mind, and as I said, I've heard some very strong statements against GALs where if they're not really dealing with the problem, they're not really doing anything.
They're necessary in some cases.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, put it this way, I am a strong advocate of GAL. I'm a strong advocate of, in addition to GAL, obviously, finances of an attorney for the children. Very, very, really used. I'm a strong advocate of that. Why is that? Just because what you said, it's written right here, when you were talking, I'm sure Council Duff, temporary orders, been a big thing, as you know, with me, because you've been up there a long time. I think it was, the judge today. I think he said he handles 60 hearings, 60 motions in a day, 60. And maybe 20 to 30, some are resolved, some not, but he may hear 20 to 30. We've had this hearing for how long? And we still don't know. We haven't even heard just the statement yet. 15 minutes? And what happens on a temporary, on a motion, temporary orders? I don't do divorce law, but my feeling is alimony, temporary, alimony, child support, parenting plan. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? That is a joke, okay? In 15 minutes, most judges who come before us say 10 minutes aside. Oh, man, I could ask you questions for an hour. I mean, look how long Mr. Hartman spoke. I mean, and he did a great job, by the way. Temporary orders, that's an awful lot. Yeah, you're gonna say, well, there's a lot of vetting before that with the Department of whatever, however it works here. But and the other problem is, temporary orders, a lot of the time become permanent orders. Because again, finance, you gotta pay that lawyer all this kind of money. But yeah, temporary orders to me, like Judge Ordonez is, to me, one of my favorite, if not my favorite, chief justices of all the courts. 20 minutes for temporary orders when you're dealing with custody, parenting plan, and nothing against the chief justice, but I personally think it's a disgrace because I don't think you can get all the information. We couldn't have a hearing for Mr. Cronan in 20 minutes. I wouldn't know how to vote if I had a hearing in 20 minutes. But I appreciate the question and thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. We'll be here in opposition, so it's your turn to convince us. I use the reasonable doubt standard. So, convince me on a reasonable doubt.
Mr. Chair, just, a moment. I had, the bronchitis or walking home. I listen to what you have to say, Paul. I talked to you, I vetted you. Really. I gotta go, because it is privilege tonight. But I appreciate all of you staying here and because I'm not in the mood, simply have to do something. Unlike governor's counselors, doctors have hours and that's it, so. Well, we hope it's not.
Someone who's reach a certain age, we go to doctor. We appreciate it. Okay, why don't you, go ahead and give us your, okay.
It is an honor and privilege to be here before the council for my nomination as Associate Justice of the Bristol Division. There are many people I want to thank. First and foremost, Governor Baker, nominated me as Chief Legal Counsel Kovich, Attorney Sharon Casey, Executive Director of the Judicial Nominating Commission, as well as her staff. I want to thank all the members of the Judicial Nominating Committee. I truly appreciate the time and dedication required to review all of the judicial applications, including many qualified candidates, and perform due diligence in this process. I want to thank and recognize Chief Justice Ordonez for coming here this afternoon. I particularly want to thank Judge Casey, Attorney Lockman, and Barbara Pacheco for their kind words in support of my nomination. I've known Judge Casey for over 45 years, and I proudly say he's both a mentor and a friend. Before I get asked this question, John needs me involved as much as I know John. It's really neat. I've known Cliff and Barbara for over 25 years, and they have great admiration and respect for both of them. I would also like to thank several people who could not be here today, who have had significant impact on my community. Retired First Justice of the Probate Committee, it would be an honor to succeed him if I am confirmed on his council. I had the privilege of caring for him for nearly 20 years. He had a real passion for the law and public service. I learned a lot every time I appeared before him, even if he didn't rule in my favor. I had a chance to speak with Judge Nisi last week. He's happy to hear he's enjoying his retirement. He's actually in Mexico this week. He's in Florida next week. I want to thank my good friend, Attorney Elliot Brett. As we speak, I believe he's on a plane out of South Carolina. Elliot and I met in freshman year of Bishop King High School. We were roommates for a year in college. We attended different law schools. We studied past Juarez back in 1988. I have been practicing in various space in Elliot's building for the last 19 years. We talked colleagues, and many dedicated employees of the Probate Court who have supported me through this entire process. Their support has been appreciated. It's not going unnoticed. I want to thank each of you, members of the Governance Council, particularly my co-sponsor, Bob Jubin, who had a chance to speak with many of you over the past several days, and appreciate the time and the effort you put into these hearings. As with all nominees who will be before you, my application and resume will give you a small glimpse into the person I am. Let me take a few minutes to give you some more personal and professional details. I grew up in Atty, which is a small city in southeastern Massachusetts. I had a wonderful childhood. I grew up in a very close neighborhood. My parents had 5 children in 7 years. I grew up believing this was normal. Our neighborhood had many large families. The Thompsons had 7 children. My cousins on the street had 8 children. Karen's, I think, had 7 or 8 children. Karen's had 5 children. There was no need to get involved in the activities the children get involved in today because I grew up on the floor. Plenty of things to keep us busy. When my siblings and I look back, we really were our parents were actually thinking. Raising children is probably the most rewarding thing a person can do. It's certainly the most difficult. I grew up in what I would consider a traditional family. My father worked as a treasurer for a small local company. My mother was a physical education teacher until she stopped working outside the home when she had 3 children on 4. My mother returned to work when my younger sister was probably 7 or 8 years old. She did not return to teaching, but instead learned the travel business through my grandmother who had been traveling for many years. My mother opened her own travel agency and ran through one by one for many years. My father continued to work his full-time job and doing all the bookkeeping for the business at night and on weekends. My parents instilled in myself and my siblings the importance of hard work, community service, and education. My father was active in the Lions Club in Madrid. My mother was involved in the Boys and Girl Scouts. I have been involved in the World Bar Association, the Lions Club. For the past 10 years, I've been involved in the Memorial Scholarship Foundation. Melissa was my 8-year-old neighbor who was best friends with my 2 daughters. And unfortunately passed away from leukemia 10 years ago. I worked tirelessly to raise some funds for my children who were going off to college. I started working when I was 14 years old. I washed dishes in the shore with a cook at a local restaurant and continued to work there through high school. During my summer breaks from college, I worked at a local manufacturing company. All of my siblings also began working when probably 14 to 15 years old. I attended Assumption College in Worcester and was a political science major. My greatest memory from college was my junior year, which I spent at the University of Bath and back home. It was an unforgettable experience and gave me the opportunity to travel throughout Europe. When I was at Assumption, I was encouraged by several professors there to go to law school. There were no lawyers in my family. I was very interested in the law. I went to speak to my parents after I graduated from college about going to law school. And although they were 100% behind me, they said that they had 3 children, 2 sisters, and my brother was in college at the time, and said I was going to have to take that on my own. I certainly couldn't afford law school at that time, so I decided to get a job. To pay off some small student loans that I had and save some money. Other than my father, everyone in the Attleboro area worked for Texas Instruments or Balfour Company. Was hired. The Balfour was worth for me over the years. Who I went to law school and supported me entirely. I worked at Balfour full time during the 4 years that I attended the night program at Suffolk University Law School. The most important thing that happened in Balfour is I met my wife. I was my best friend for the last 30 years. We've been together, as I said, for 30 years, and I for 24 years this July. After graduating from law school, I wasn't sure what type of law I wanted to practice. I knew I didn't want to get involved in a big Boston law firm. I wanted to get exposure to as many areas of the law as I could. I knew several local attorneys in the North Attleboro area. I was hired by attorney Michael Newton before he even passed the bar exam. I was able to work in his office even before passing the bar exam, working on various cases. Immediately after passing the bar exam, I handled all types of cases: criminal, estate planning, civil probates, real estate, civil litigation, evictions, family law, personal injury. I formed a partnership with Mike Newton and attorney Jean Creel in 1991. We practiced together for about 3 years.